Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Joining me again is Mohan Sonti, and we are going to be talking a bit about Haryana elections as well as the J&K elections, the results, the trends, the demographic, as well as a few other things that perhaps nobody has dared touch before. So as always, please like this video, and if you have not already subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe. Now let's welcome Mohan Sonti ji. Mohan ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you, Andy?
Namaste, Shriji. Very nice again to be back. My presentation, as always, is going to be about actual numbers, the data from the government of India and other government sources. These are all very authentic information. And the analysis based on that.
Thank you so much, Mohan Garu. Viewers, one thing that you should keep in mind, we are data-centric. This particular presentation is completely based on data. While it is nice to see the BJP do well in some states, there are always notes of caution that you need to keep in mind. And this is basically a look at the reality on the ground. So I'm going to invite Mohan Garu to now start talking about his slide deck. Wonderful slides that you have presented, Mohan Garu. Over to you.
All right. Namaste, everyone. As always, my presentation is less to do with the emotions here, and it's more to do with the actual data and information and facts that as we see it here. Today it is going to be about 2024 assembly elections that happened in Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir, and there's an analysis based on the data. So we'll be covering that in 4 slides pretty much. One is assembly election data for Haryana, assembly election data for Jammu and Kashmir, and then we'll talk a little bit about the farm bill just to understand what that is about. And then we'll do a demographics and analysis for the Jammu and Kashmir. And I have put up the sources over here. As always, everything that is presented here is completely authentic. Almost all the data comes from the government sources. We can see the Census Data Election Commission, then Agri Welfare, NITI, and Lok Sabha, Ministry of Consumer Affairs. All of these are from the government of India. I used one particular map from one of the website, Maps of India. Then 2 additional sources of information is the Pakistani government and the government of 𝗤𝗖𝗄𝗏. Both are also government sources. All right, so let's continue with the Haryana part. So Haryana Assembly elections, it is for 90 seats. And we see that BJP has won, and it is forming the government. That seems like a great news to all of us. But said that, let us look at the history of how this has evolved. So BJP from 2000 to 2009, that it hasn't made much of a progress. It was like about 9%. It stayed at about the same thing, right? Now, what happened to other parties is there were some regional parties, like the Congress had 30%. It went to 42%, then 35%. What happened in 2009 was basically the HJC, which is Haryana Jan-Hit Congress by Bhajan Ji. He was a former chief minister 3 times, former chief minister. There were obviously disputes because Bhupender Singh Ji Hooda was given the opportunity in early 2000s. So I think there was some sort of a dispute related to that, or there could be many other issues within the party itself. So Bhajan Ji separated into split the Congress into a different party called HJC, which is Haryana Jan-Hit Congress. And remember in my previous videos, I said how it is the king, and the king takes their people with them. So he took away 7.5%, and you can see the dip from 42%, it went down to about 35% for Congress. All right, then what happened in 2014, we had Modi ji and BJP, they put in a big thrust. And the good news there was, you see a dramatic increase of 25%. Essentially, they got the HJC and multiple other places. They essentially grabbed all the votes, including from the Congress, and they went up to 33% in 2014. Now, the good news from the 2014 onwards, the good news here is that BJP could retain its percentage. Now, I know many people talk about the number of seats. There's 47 seats, then 40, 48, and all those numbers. But we have to remember something. The percentage is very, very crucial. I see in most of the shows and most people talk about whether a party has won based on the number of seats and if it formed the government. I have one video over here in PGurus. I talk about 5 steps to forming government. The percentage is extremely crucial because percentage is the real support on the ground. And if you do not have a real support, everything else is manipulation. Everything else is, playing the game with how to get the seats. and those are not sustainable options. They're only as good as you can manipulate and optimize things. But percentage speaks the truth on what is the real support on the ground that we have. So personally, I think the percentage is the most important thing. Now, we see that if the party is really weak, like Chanakya Niti says, if you're really weak, then it makes sense for us to talk about the seats and how do we do the optimization and things like that. But that is not the case here for BJP. In many of the states where BJP has a substantial amount of percentage, they should work on improving that percentage, which is the ground support. G.
Just one clarification for our viewers. The numbers in the square brackets indicate the number of seats won by that respective party. Over to you, sir.
That's correct. So the one in the brackets is basically number of seats won. Like in 2014, BJP got 33.2% of votes and it won 47 seats and so on. So 2014 to 2024, BJP did make a progress about 3% every season. Basically, every election, they made a 3% progress, which is good. At least they did not slide back. That is a good news. But said that the 3% progress is not that great either. So that is the reality we have to keep in mind. Number two, if you look carefully in the Congress, which had a dip of 15% from 2009 to 14. Now, what happened in 2019 is the INLD, which is the Indian National Lok Dal, which is Chaudhary Devilalji's, basically their heirs. They're all like kingdoms. Essentially, these are family-run businesses, all these political parties. So the INLD was split. And Dushyant Chautala, they are from Chaudhary Devilalji is from a place called Chautala. So they have the last name Chautala there. So Dushyantji Chautala split that into Jan Nayak Janata Party. And we can see that it completely squashed the INLD in 2019. And out of 24%, he took away only 14.8%. Rest of them, a substantial portion joined Congress. BJP only gained 3%. So Congress is attracting all the other people, and BJP's growth itself is not that big. It only grew by 3%. Same in 2024. The good news is it did not slide back. The ground support, the number of people supporting BJP and Haryana did grow, but it grew only by a meager 3%. But for Congress, 14 to 19, it grew by over 7 to 8%, and now again by over 11%. Now, when we talk about victory, there are two factors we need to keep in mind. Number one is, how are we faring? Are we growing? Are we getting stronger? But the other important factor that we always have to account is, how about our enemies or opposition? Are they losing out or not? In this case, the BJP strength did grow by 3%, which is very meager, but it did not slide back. That is good. But the growth itself is very weak, meaning it was not able to add more people into its side. But the enemy, the Congress party there, the opposition, was growing by 7% and 11%, and it regained the strength that is more than what it had in 2009. So essentially, Congress was very good in consolidating everybody else. So the opposition is going strong. So the fact that 2024 BJP won is it is a good news, because end of the day, it's good to have the power in hand and form the government. But it is not really as good a news as many people believe, because the Congress is also at a striking range. It grew much, much faster. And so that is the downside of it. Now, yeah.
If you're done with the slide, let me know. I have a couple of observations, and then we can go to the next slide. Go ahead.
One thing I just want to say is the numbers in red, that 1.44 and 12.26, these are kind of deduced and calculated based on the ECI data, so I'm not too accurate about it. So I just put that numbers in red. One good important thing we need to keep in mind is, though Congress is in striking range, now it's very close and it has really made great progress, and BJP made a lukewarm progress. We have to remember that Bhupender Singh Ji Hooda is currently about 77 years old. So this is pretty much the last end of his tenure. And he was the leader for 25 years, pretty much since the beginning of 2000s. In fact, probably one of the reasons why Bhajan Lal Ji, who was also a chief minister in the past 3 times, he probably split the party and formed the HJC, Haryana J&K Congress. So Congress government, though it actually gained very well, but the chances are they won't be able to sustain this, because 𝗣𝗚𝗼𝗫𝗍 is going to leave the party soon. And when there is a change in leadership, a lot of other things change. And that will be a great opportunity for BJP to do things right and get more people on its side. So this is an opportunity they should not miss. Once a new leader comes in, they establish themselves, then it becomes very difficult. So this is the time for them to consolidate and increase from not just a meager 3%. They have a very good potential to increase by something more substantial. G, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Mohan. A couple of observations from my side. Number one, see, if you look at percentages as a reliable indicator for the state, there is one catch there, Mohanji. The percentage has to be evenly distributed. In other words, the 39.94, it should be evenly distributed across the state. Then percentage becomes like the sole reference point to understand the performance. However, you will see, like we are going to see in Jammu and Kashmir, that BJP got more percentage of votes than the next party, National Conference, yet it ended up with lesser number of seats. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, percentage is a very important point. In fact, there's another thing that I want to touch upon here because of percentages. Others, 12.26%. Mohanji, this is anecdotal. I don't have any proof for this. What it is like this. Bhupinder Singh Hooda was still not 100% sure that if he got absolute majority, that he would automatically be the chief ministerial nominee for Haryana. So what he wanted to do was have some people in his back pocket, again, anecdotal, so that these would be contesting as independents, so that he could basically say, well, we didn't get full majority, but I can bring all these independents whose loyalty is only to me. Therefore, I shall be the chief ministerial candidate. This is an anecdotal evidence that has been told to me. Well, whether it's true or not, you saw the number, that red number, 12.26 is a very high number, right?
So this again bears me out. Independents. So the 12.26, it includes the BSP and many other parties. Yes, they can do that. See, these are a few games that most of the political parties play. Yes. So that is understandable. But regarding the percentage, see, the first thing is, I would say the percentage, I'm not saying that is the sole indicator, but certainly percentage is extremely important, because if you don't have the percentage, then there is nothing much can be done. Like it happened in UP in the Lok Sabha elections, BJP had almost 10 to 11% margin, but still it ended up getting less number of seats. Yes, they need to be well distributed. All of those things are true. But if you don't even have the percentage, then you don't have...
What you're saying is this is a necessary condition. This is like a necessary condition.
Necessary condition. And then you go towards how do we spread that out and how do we make it bigger and how do we do all the poll math and all of those things come in later. But you can do all of that only if you have the percentage. If you don't even have percentage, you rely solely on optimization, which is very a temporary solution. Right.
Very true, sir.
All right. So we'll go to the next slide. Here, I just want to talk about one of the major issues in Haryana they talk about is the Farm Bill. You know, all the protests and everything that happened in Punjab and Haryana. So let's spend a little time on understanding what is a Farm Bill. Basically, Farm Bill has three components, right? The first is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce. Basically, it's the Act of 2020. What it says is currently the farmers can mostly sell in their local area, like the mandi. And this actually opens up the market to the whole country, to wherever they want to go and wherever they want to sell it. They can do an online trade. And earlier, if anyone had taken out of their local area, then the state can actually levy a tax, assess or something like that to actually punish them. So this law, the first law, is very important. It is very good for the country. Basically, it says the farmers can actually go outside their local area and sell it wherever they want. So this is more of a capital market, right? Basically, they can take the product and sell where it is actually needed, where it will fetch a better price. And they can do an online trade. And the state cannot punish them for that by imposing any kind of a tax. The second one is about Farmers Empowerment Protection Agreement. You say when you deal with others, the farmers now also have a right to enter into any kind of a private contracts for the pricing and all of that. They can actually demand one of the best prices for their products. And there is a dispute resolution mechanism that goes through 3 levels all the way to the appellate court. So all these provisions was made in the Farm Bill 2. The bill number 3 is about essential commodities. This is a very important one. The Essential Commodities Act, what it does is basically liberalizes the essential commodities. So currently what the government does is, it says some of them are essential commodities, and these essential commodities, what the government is saying is, there is something called MSP, the minimum support price. So what it does is, the government will purchase the whole product from you at a minimum support price. The minimum support price based on a certain math and calculation. There is different proposals to change that too, but based on the current math and calculations, the minimum support price comes to about 1.5 times all the expenses that they pay. So if they make a produce for say 100 rupees, now the government purchases from them at 150 rupees. Now there will be someone who will argue, no, there are other hidden costs and things like that, but let's not worry about those details. But it's typically about 1.5 times, which is fairly generous, right? Now, the minimum support price, what happens is, this law says the essential commodities will be effectively removed so that everything is in the free market. When it's in the free market, the essential commodities idea of minimum support price or any other laws that kick in will only come in during a war, famines, or extraordinary price rise, national calamities. Under these circumstances, government will intervene. Otherwise, the government is stepping away from this free market and saying we're liberalizing. Like it happened in 1990s, we liberalized the economy. This is about liberalizing the farmers and saying that you can go and sell wherever you want. And the important thing here is about the minimum support price. What happens is, the few products, earlier we had all the onions, potatoes, and all the rice paddy fields and wheat, and everything was under that. So who benefits from it, and what are the takeaways? The objective of minimum support price originally was so that the farmers do not go into a loss for producing something that is important for the country. So let's say they produce rice and they produce wheat. Then the government says, if you're not able to sell it anywhere, then I will certainly purchase it from you. So it is like having a safety net. Like you have safety nets in many countries, right? Even in USA and other places, we have safety net where you say that this is the minimum wage or this is the minimum amount the government is going to support. Now, think of it this way. Let us say somebody is making, there's a bunch of sweet shops and they're making jalebis, gulab jamun, and rasgulla. And the government says jalebi is very important and I'm going to pay 1.5 times your costs, right? There is a free market, but imagine if the shop owner says, if I just make jalebis, I'm sure to get at least some profit. I may not make great profit, but all the risk is taken away because the government is going to purchase my jalebis. So I'll always make some profit. So that introduces two things. Number one, they know that they can always produce that one thing. They always make the jalebi and they'll get some profit. Number two, this introduces middlemen who will ensure that this is actually sold to the government in the proper channels and they always make that minimum money. This is a little bit like a socialism, right? Now, replace the jalebi with wheat and rice. That's exactly what happened for Punjab and Haryana, where between the wheat and rice together, the amount of things that government purchases on MSP basis is the absolute highest in Punjab and Haryana. And there are a lot of middlemen. Remember I mentioned about the jalebi example. There are a lot of middlemen, they came in and they facilitate this because there are a lot of little farmers. They consolidate all of that and make sure it is sold to the government and they distribute the money. So the middlemen and all the farmers, there is a substantial portion that now actually relies on the government money because government is purchasing it. This is very similar to, we have the safety nets even in USA, and the safety nets going out of control, wherein some people exclusively rely, once the safety nets go higher and higher, at some point you realize I have to work really hard and do a real work, and I might lose the job, I may keep the job, I might earn more or less, we don't know. But if the safety net, if I stick to it, I'll always have a minimum guaranteed. And that minimum guaranteed is not so little either. It's currently about 1.5 times the price of their entire production, which means the government, they are very happy to just get things from the government. The number 1 and 2 states are Punjab and Haryana. That makes you understand why all these protests are happening there. The middlemen will instigate and tell whatever they want to tell the farmers. Yes.
Mohan Garu, one question. You alluded to this example, right? Let's say the cost of producing 1 quintal doesn't matter. 1 quintal of rice is 100 rupees to the farmer, and the MSP for that is 150. Now there is a middleman involved here. Between that 100 to 150, the margin is 50 rupees. Can you give us an approximate idea of how it breaks down between what the farmer actually gets and how much the middleman gets?
So I don't have the exact numbers for that, but what I know is that it's actually a very small fraction that the farmer really gets. It is actually the middleman who gets a substantial portion. But what happened in the Farm Bill and all the protests is the middlemen essentially threatened the farmers, saying that even the little wage that they get, the small fraction that they get, at least they were assured of getting that money, say something like around 10 rupees out of the 50. And the middleman keeps about 40 rupees. He kind of created a situation where the farmer is worried about getting the 10 rupees. So how do we solve this problem? The two things have to be done. One is about removing the middleman, where the government can send the money directly to the farmers. Then they can control the prices and everything much better. And number two is kind of removing this kind of a socialistic idea, because that does not lead to much benefits in the longer run. The farmers need to be educated. Until that point, Punjab and Haryana will have an issue. This requires a lot of re-educating the farmers there. And a lot of middlemen are actually blocking from that kind of an education. The other states that top the list are Telangana, Chhattisgarh, and MP, but these are much further down. So if we understand these three laws, you'll see how it'll actually benefit liberalizing the entire farm market. Otherwise, what we have is like an ambassador and Premier Padmini. We can keep doing that forever, and that is what the farmers are doing here. Or what is happening in Punjab and Haryana is the middlemen making the money, and the actual farmers are getting a small fraction of it. But they are simply selling and doing the exact same thing. It is not even good for the country, because the issue with this is the production of, because it does not reflect the market, they end up producing more of one crop, which they know that they can sell to the government. And government will further subsidize that and give food to a lot of other needy people. But the thing is, this does not reflect the market itself. So it skews the whole idea on how the crop production happens in a country. So that is not good for the country overall. Just like any other socialistic idea, if it's micromanaged and managed by the government to the T, the problem is it's off balance. It is metastable condition. Government is artificially managing that kind of a balance, and that is not how it should run. It should be a free market. All right.
Somewhere I see that the messaging that we are conveying by way of data here today, did the Indian government, central government, do the same kind of homework and go to directly, like for example, I don't know if the Prime Minister spoke by way of his Mann Ki Baat, saying that this exact example, 100 to 150, and that you are actually leaving money on the table. But there is, that part, I don't know how the communication part went. Let's leave the, for now, there is hope, in my opinion. Yeah.
So, Sree, the issue with the communication is, because we are a very diverse nation, it's very hard to send the information across, even within the states. If you look at it, say in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, what Modi ji does, a lot of the common people there do not get that message at all, because the media and everything is handled by a lot of middlemen, and they make sure there's a big communication gap. So that is going to be a very tough job.
It can be done by the local BJP party. They are very comfortable with the local language. I'm sorry, I think what I'm not being negative as much as trying to say these are all the places where you can improve, because BJP does something good for the people. It is doing something good for the country. And not everybody has the gift of being able to take a 360-degree view of things, which is what we think we have, because we are distanced from there. And that's why we are trying to tell, here is where things can be done to improve BJP's own functioning and messaging. Sir, let's go to the next slide, because we have a lot to cover.
I just want to say that, see, in general, if you look at the Farm Bill, I would say this would actually revolutionize the whole farming idea in Bharat. This will take it to a whole new level. I hope somebody conveys this message properly. All right, next we go to the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly election. I put 87/90 plus 5 seats because it was 87 seats until 2019. And then after the split, and 87 seats is distributed, as you can see in the old seats, distributed between Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. And then in the new seats, basically after the Ladakh has been separated and this became a separate union territory, Jammu and Kashmir, It's split. It is 90 seats between 43 and 47, and 5 are nominated by the Lieutenant Governor in the Union Territory. Now, if you look at these numbers again, BJP has 8%, went to 12%. It went to 22 or 23% in 2014, and it formed a government with the help of PDP, right? So all of these things look like beautiful. They just say that, okay, BJP is growing like in any other state, right? It looks very similar to that. But there is actually a caveat, and there is a very serious problem in Jammu and Kashmir. And this is about hitting the limit that BJP can go to, because we have to understand the ground realities in the culture. Again, the next slide is just about the numbers and what really happened. So there is nothing emotional about it, whether BJP can grow, how people are. I'm not making any of those comments. This is basically the facts of what is taught, what the real results look like. So BJP from 2014, 2024, they got 25%, 25.5%. They didn't form the government because Congress and the National Conference together, they formed the government. We can see that they got 29 seats. Now, the National Conference got 42. So we know that out of 90, they need 45, plus 5 can be nominated by the Lieutenant Governor. So essentially, they need to get together with that. It's going to be 95, so it has to be more than 47. All right, I think I just made a mistake in the math there. It should have been 95 there over here. But anyway, so it should be more than 47, 48. All right. But I think they just managed to get the 48, 42 plus 6. They will form the government. Now, here are the issues we have in Jammu and Kashmir. Right. By the way, the number 24 plus 24 is for the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That number has always been there since the beginning. And they continued with that, with the idea that we know there is a government resolution in the parliament that Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is an integral part of Bharat. So we don't still hold the elections there yet. But if and when that happens, they'll have about 24 seats there as the estimate. All right. Now, here's the interesting thing. Even despite all these percentages, in Jammu, which has 43 seats, the BJP got 29 of them. National Conference actually got 7, right? In Kashmir, if you look at it, BJP got 0. And not only did it get 0, it never got in second place in 45 of those constituencies. It's not even in the second place. Nowhere near the second place. Only in 2 places, it came second. And if you do a closer inspection of those 2 places, at one of them, the National Conference was ruling for the last almost 50 years. That's 47, 48 years. Close to 50 years, it was National Conference, with a small gap of one of the independents who came in for one time. Otherwise, for 50 years, they were ruling that place. So the second area was, it is the same leader of National Conference who's been winning for close to 20 plus years, almost 20 since 2002. So it's almost 22 years. And now it's going to be another 5 years, right? So it's the same leader from last 20 years, more than 20 to 25 years. So in these 2 constituencies, I would say the opposition parties, anybody else, it was not really a contest per se. So there wasn't really any opposition. Nobody was really fighting. So BJP did come in a second place. There is nothing to rejoice there, because this second place is because there is no real opposition. No other place did they get even the second place. So BJP is not coming in any of those 47 constituencies. Now, there are several ways of solving this problem. One way to do it is, I think Jammu and Kashmir need also to be split into separate states. Is one way of solving it, because Kashmir, they're not getting anything. But the other way is, the hope is that even if they get a couple of seats, which I don't think will happen, but let us say, for the sake of argument, their idea is if they can be in the government, then they have a better say in what happens in Kashmir as well. I think that is their thought process. And that is the reason they want to keep it together, so that they can have some say in the Kashmir. Otherwise, Kashmir is fundamentally radicalized. It has always been. In fact, it has wiped out every single Hindu and minorities from there pretty violently. So that is the issue. And they probably want to contain it by adding Jammu into it. Now, let us look at the numbers of the population here, right? The Jammu division has about 5.5 million people, and 30% of them are Muslims, which means it's very unlikely that even in Jammu, BJP will ever get 43 seats. Very unlikely. All right, I would say it's near impossible. And in Kashmir, 7 million people, 97% Muslims, it's like a dream to even get one seat there. They'll never get it because that is not how the Muslims think. So we'll go into that detail later. If you're interested, I'll just tell you how the Islamic idea is. The Azad Kashmir, they call it Azad for whatever reason. That is how the map shows it. It's basically a Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It's just fundamentally our Kashmir. It is an extension. If you look at the map here, you see the Kashmir Valley. The other side, left side of it, is also actually the Kashmir. Because it has been occupied, invaded and occupied by Pakistan, they gave it a name as Azad Kashmir. That has a population of 4 million, and it's 100% Muslims. 𝗤𝙬𝗍-Baltistan, which is the top region that you see here, also Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, has a population of 1.5 million. If we were to take over the POK, the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, we'll be adding 5.5 million Muslims to this. Now, these numbers, I got it from the government of Pakistan and government of 𝗤𝙬𝗍-Baltistan. There are separate websites. I provided the sources for that. In reality, this Pakistan-occupied Kashmir has substantial presence of the Pakistani military. Now, Ladakh has 0.25 million people, and half of them are Muslims. Then there are two other regions that are occupied by China, China-occupied Kashmir. One is they call it as 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝘆 𝗔. The second is 𝗤𝙤𝘆 Valley, which is very close to the 𝐶𝐴 Glacier. And the population of that area is like negligible. That's like completely inhabitable. 𝗤𝙤𝘆 𝗔 also has like very little population, like about 10,000 people or something like that. At least that's what the numbers show. Now, the issue is, if we know that BJP never wins in Kashmir, and we are almost doubling the population of the Muslims there by adding Azad Kashmir, 𝗤𝙬𝗍-Baltistan, we are going to have a serious issue in governance. It's just a mere fact. Now, I know the people who are very happy saying that the people of POK want to join Bharat. I would say, think about it. Today, if Bharat allows it, it's not just POK, entire Pakistan will want to join Bharat. It will factually want to join Bharat because their agenda is better implemented if they're simply with Bharat, because they don't need to send cross-border terrorists. They can just walk in. Two, their region they will always take, in fact, Kashmir, it is named after Kashyap Mahamuni. But there is a joke that I heard when I was young that Kashmir is probably given that name because of the amount of cash that Bharat spends on them. So, we spend an enormous amount of money for the development. It's a substantial amount of money. And instead of development, we have to do all the defense work and the security, and it's a lot of money spent on that. If they would actually want to develop, this would have been a whole different place. But that is not how they think. That is a problem we need to acknowledge. So when Kashmir, the entire Pakistan wants to join because we provide the food, we provide better facilities, amenities, security, we provide everything. But they have never, in the whole country, the total number of Muslims who have voted for BJP is like about 5%, and the more generous estimates are like 10%. Now, this is a fact, and numbers you can go and verify. So, yes, they will take it. Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, do they really want to join Bharat? Of course. They get better food, facilities, security. They get everything that Pakistan does not provide, and yet they get to do whatever they want. And they really don't care about any of that, our culture or country or civilization, none of that. That's why they want to join. In fact, the whole Pakistan will want to join. In fact, they figured that it's a mistake to separate. If they had been part of Bharat, by now they would have taken over the whole country. But anyway, so this is about the whole presentation. So Sree, if you want, I can just go a little bit about one of the Islamic ideas.
But before we go there, I just want to tell our viewers, if there's one compelling presentation, one compelling hangout that you need as proof that India doesn't need POK and 𝗤𝙬𝗍-Baltistan, it is this one. The numbers don't lie. They have proven again and again, this is their mindset. The hearts are changing, that stuff, winning people's hearts. It's not going to happen in 2-3 generations. My 2 cents is as long as people are not willing to understand where they came from and admit that they were Hindus once, they were Buddhists once, and then start looking at what are the goodnesses of those religions, that change needs to happen on the ground. It will take decades. So I think at this point of time, we can safely should look at this data and say it's not worth adding to all the existing problems that India has internally. Let India fix all their internal problems first before they can start thinking of getting POK and 𝗤𝙬𝗏 or whatever other places from Pakistan. I think, and this is the situation today, the way I see it. And thank you so much. And now, if you can spend a couple of minutes about this mindset, why it is refusing to change, what needs to be brought about. I mean, clearly, there is a law that prohibits a lot of things that is happening on the ground, especially by the Muslims. Why is the law not cracking the whip? That is my question to all those state governments who are not implementing the law. Okay, that is just one side, that not wanting to implement the law is one thing. There is another cultural thing. That's what Mohanji wants to talk about. Over to you, Mohanji. Couple of minutes and then we can wrap it up.
All right. So regarding that taking over 𝗤𝙬𝗏𝗏 and Azad Kashmir, the POK Pakistan occupied Kashmir, I just want to mention that there is a reason why we want to take those areas is because then we get, if you look at the picture here, we have a direct link with Afghanistan. In fact, two things happen. The Pakistan and China will lose the direct land link. And that is very significant. In fact, this is a very strategic point where it's because of this land link is one of the reasons it really helped Pakistan become a nuclear state with the help of China. And any of the trade or anything else, basically China has a direct link with the Pakistan through the POK. If we take the POK, not only will China lose the link with Pakistan, we have a direct link with Afghanistan. So we can completely bypass Pakistan. We don't have to go through the Chabahar port for our trade. Through the Iran, we can actually go through Afghanistan. So this is one of the reasons. So this is a strategic location. That is the main reason. Will the people change? See, as long as for Muslims, they completely disregard their own ancestors and their ancestral culture and somehow think the Arabs are the real true brothers and friends. And until that point, they're not going to change. Arabs don't consider them that way. I mean, I know I sometimes refer to these people as wannabe Arabs. They eat like them, they talk like them, they write like them, they celebrate like them, they dress like them, they do everything like them. But Arabs don't really think any of these Muslims are going to be Arabs, no matter how much they try. So at some point, the Muslims have to look back and have some respect for their own ancestors and ancestral culture. As long as they don't have that, we're not going to accomplish much over here. Now, why this mindset has come in? We have to understand about a person called Abu Hanifa, right? So there is a lot of material online, and all of this is authentic. You can verify this anywhere online. There's so many sites that give you full details on this. They have a specific worldview, the Islamic worldview. And I'm just going to mention about three major divisions that Abu Hanifa had said. And Abu Hanifa is considered the greatest of the imams, the lamp of the imams. He is like considered one of the greatest imams that Islam ever had. All right. Now, he actually talked to people called al-Sahaba. Al-Sahaba, the companions of Muhammad. So this is as authentic as it can get. And he says the world in the Islamic view, not that every Muslim agrees with it, but because they have their own internal disputes to resolve. But this is the general idea given by the greatest of their imams. He says the world is divided into three segments. The number one is called Darul Islam or Darul Tawhid or Darul Salam, which is an Islamic land, and other non-Muslims are basically kafirs and they live as dhimmis, as a second and third rate citizens. All right. They call it as a protected people. It's almost like we have protected animals in a zoo, right? The second one is called Darul Ahad, and the third is the Darul Harab. So Darul Harab, many people know, it's the land of war, because this is not an Islamic land. The objective is to convert all of these to Darul Islam. Now, what is Darul Ahad? Darul Ahad is a place where the Muslims can practice their laws and their way of life, and the government or any of the kingdom or anybody else will let them do whatever they want to do. For example, like you have a Waqf board, Muslim personal law board, and everything. Essentially, I will do whatever I want. If you don't disturb me, then I will gradually expand. I will take over. They're not going to stop on that, but I will take over peacefully. But in Darul Harab, if you don't let me do things that way, then I will take over violently. And when I say violently, it's a place of war. War is not necessarily about destroying things and killing people. That is where you have the idea of al-taqiyya, wherein they can be deceptive. They can talk sweet and nice as long as they can integrate and penetrate into the society when they are weaker. But eventually, when they're stronger, they will take over. And that's what happened in Kashmir. Now, one point to be noted here, one last point I want to mention is Jawaharlal Nehru, after the independence, when the constitution was formed, Article 370 was supposed to be a temporary one. And that was put in 1950 when we adopted the constitution, right? And it became the republic. In 1954, on 14th May, this was passed as a presidential order. So it was not in the parliament or any of those things, none of the discussions. It was put as a presidential order, which made the Article 370 a de facto permanent one, if not a de jure. Meaning it is not officially permanent, but it became as good as being permanent. And this was passed through presidential orders. And I personally think there's no reason to do that. Interestingly, this happened on 14th May 1954. Exactly a week later, 21st May 1954, is when Jawaharlal Nehru passed the Waqf Act. The Waqf Act of 1954, which gives sweeping powers. And if you remember from our previous video, when we have a full details on Waqf, this Waqf Act of 1954 excludes Jammu and Kashmir. And there is the reason for that, as you would see, is because the entire Jammu and Kashmir region was completely handed over to the Islamic way of life, to Omar Abdullah and all the Farooq Abdullah and that whole team, right? So because it is already entirely Islamic, the Waqf is actually a step down for them. Waqf is applicable to all the Kafir lands, basically to all the rest of the country. In Jammu and Kashmir, Article 370 goes above and beyond the Waqf Act. It basically hands over everything to them to make up their own laws, their own flag, their own constitution. They have everything as if it's an independent piece. And this was done with the presidential order on 14th May. And exactly a week later came the Waqf Act. So some of these things, I would say, were completely unnecessary. Also, the additional one was about the endowments. Essentially, whatever the Britishers did, whatever the Mughals did, when we became independent, they just brought in all of that as is and just made it worse, including the Endowment Act. This is something that we have to keep in mind and understand what really happened there. So in Darul Ahad, right now, they'll be fine with us as long as they can have a country within a country and run their business the way they feel like doing it. Otherwise, to their mind, as it's taught in madrasas, this will turn into a Darul Harab. It becomes a place of war. That does not necessarily mean they're going to take up the arms the next day. It means when the war begins, they will have their own ways of penetrating into the system, like it is happening in US and Europe.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much, Mohan Garu. There's a lot of food for thought on this video, viewers. Like I said at the beginning, this is not something that one should take lightly. Please, if you need to watch this thing more than once, Mohanji has spent days trying to put together this data. The results came on the 8th. Today we are 3 days later, and he has spent a lot of time crunching the numbers, trying to understand where things are headed. And viewers, I hope that you will pass this thing along to your friends. We need to start thinking a little bit more detailed. Don't think, when elections come, don't think with your heart before you vote. Think with your head. And we are hoping that this particular hangout takes you one step closer to thinking with your head when it comes to casting your vote. It's not in India, it's not US, it's a whole world. Wherever you can vote, you need to do it with your head. This is our humble submission to all of you. I hope you like it. Thank you so much, Mohan Garu. We'll be back with Mohanji on a couple of other topics like this where you really get food for thought. Thank you once again, sir. Namaskar.
Namaste.